Hi everyone, this is Selena and Chitika. We quickly wanted to issue a trigger warning for the content in this episode. There are instances where we mention rape culture and incest and general themes of sexual content, and we did want to give everyone a heads up. In case you feel it's best for you to skip this episode, please feel free to do so. We also wanted to quickly acknowledge that we do not condone any of these behaviors to any degree, and we have done our best to only mention any disturbing content as much as little as possible, and as much as we thought was perhaps important to acknowledge in terms of the stories we were sharing, because we did not want to water down or romanticize these characters and some of the things that they are known to do. So we hope that you are still able to enjoy some of our other content. If you feel comfortable continuing, please go ahead and click play and do let us know what you think about this episode.
Hi guys, this is Selena.
Hi everyone, this is Chitika.
And this is the podcast Working Knowledge. Thank you guys for coming back again, or if you're just joining us. This is a podcast where we try to expand our working knowledge of everyday things. So last week we wrapped up our first, I guess you could call it a series or a season, I don't know. It was about new grads, now what? And now we're gonna do sort of an in-between our like more serious topics. So Chitika, can you explain what our next series is about?
I would love to, Selena. Thanks for asking. So this season, what we should have decided what we're gonna call it.
Well,
but
technically we call it series, but I think
we do call it a series.
I think Anchor and like iTunes and whatever, they call it a season. So whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right. Season 2 is called Storytime, which we know is very vague, and that's kind of the point. But we thought that there are so many like fun stories from different parts of the world that we don't really hear in everyday life. Everyone knows the like main ones. Ooh, everyone knows the kind of big ones that become Disney movies, but there are lots of fun like some like myths and some true tales, some history, some folklore that we kind of want to know for ourselves and also share with everyone. So we're just going to spend the next few episodes, we think, telling each other like fun stories. Not always fun, good stories though, from different parts of the world.
Amusing.
Yeah. And we're going to try to keep it like, we're going to try to be regional about it, so we're gonna go from place to place and see what we can learn from different local stories, I guess. So do you want me to talk about this week?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, so today for episode 1 we're gonna do something kind of classic. So we're telling each other stories that we found in Greek mythology, that are like smaller stories that we think are funny, or some of them are kind of sad, because it wouldn't really be an episode on Greek mythology if there wasn't some tragedy involved.
Exactly.
So yeah, we have a couple of cool short stories lined up for you guys today, and we can just get right to it.
Yeah, this series or this season, whatever you want to call it, of storytelling, it's kind of like an in-between our more serious topics. So while we're preparing for those and like finding research and stuff like that, we're just gonna interject some like fun stuff.
Yeah, we thought it would be a good change of pace for us, but also for our dedicated listening audience of 10.
No, we have an audience of like more than that now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but not a lot.
You know what? We value each listener because you're here and you're listening to us talking, and sometimes sometimes my motivation to like test the drafts is like, I expect our listeners to listen to this. I have to listen to it start to finish. So I'm very thankful for people who are willing to listen to us talk.
Yes, very thankful.
Thanks, Mom.
All right. I'll start with I have like a couple of really short, like not one-liners, but like short funny, interesting ones. And then I think Chitika has like a little bit more in-depth one, which I think is also really amusing. So I'll go first. If you hear clicking, that's just my mouse, because we did quote-unquote research for this.
We did so much research.
Yeah, so much research. This is from a website that we found. The article's called "The Weirdest, Most Disturbing Stories from Greek Mythology." No, but like it's actually a real story. So the first one that I thought was really interesting is that
the suspense is
the suspense
unbearable.
Okay, Hera, who is the sister and wife of Zeus, keeps restoring her own virginity for fun. When I first told Chitika this story, she thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
I still think it's so funny.
It's funny and like probably not ethically good, but it's fine.
No,
it's fine.
Yeah.
So
it is definitely weird.
It's weird. So Hera, every year annually, she would go to this spring at what's it called? The Kenothos, a spring of Kenothos at Nauplia, where she would enjoy a lovely, relaxing bath. But the bath would also magically restore her virginity.
I don't know what that even means.
That just means she's always a virgin, basically, every year. And, like, I don't know why. I can't really figure out the reason why. She wants to always stay a maiden. I guess that's, like, something that's been passed down throughout cultures, that maidenism is, like, a thing. But yeah, wow. She would go to this bath, and I found a picture of it, or what someone said it was, and it's, like, this tiny, like, 5-foot wide pool. I guess, like, I didn't really know what a fountain is.
I think a fountain is, I think, like, Trevi Fountain.
Yeah, I think of, like, a fountain, like, that's, like, a circle in the middle of, like, a plaza. Obviously, that's just, like, stereotypical, but this fountain, quote-unquote, is, like, this tiny 5-foot diameter fountain in, like, an archway. It's pretty.
I'm gonna look at the picture you sent me.
Yeah.
That is so small. Wait, there's like steps. I just noticed this. There's steps going down to this like tub.
Mm-hmm.
But why didn't they just fill that like stepped area with water? That would have been a fountain.
I guess the tub is sacred, so they have to keep the water contained in a small space. Obviously we're like not making fun of it, but a little bit making fun of it.
I don't know who would come at us for this. Is so funny.
Yeah, but something I read also on Wikipedia, whether this is correct or not, now there's like a whole thing about bathing statues every year to restore their like virginity, quote unquote. Ritually washing things is like a thing now, so.
Oh, maybe that's where it comes from, at least in part.
Maybe, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. Ritual bathing.
But Hera was like quite the character.
She was. She is she is kind of crazy. Kind of this one website says cuckoo for love. But she basically made it her life goal to like pursue and punish and persecute her husband's mistresses. Like a lot, like all of them. And there's so many stories about that, obviously.
Oh yeah, that's a big plot point, I think, in a lot of Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also, a lot of times, I doubt if Zeus came up to you and was like, hey, you would have an option to reject, like...
No, definitely not. I think Zeus. Most of these were, like, her husband's infidelities, Zeus's infidelities, not necessarily the other way around. Yeah, okay.
What's the other one you have?
The other one, or do you want to go first?
Or should I go? Okay.
Yeah, you go.
Should I tell the like sadder one or the less sad one?
Tell us the less sad one. Or okay, sure.
Because I don't want to end on the sad, but I don't know. It's like kind of romantic, so I'll do the sad one so that we can end on like a funnier
funnier, quote unquote.
Sort of funny. I don't even. Okay. This story is so what I love about, and now I've also lost all my links. What I love about some like stories in mythology is that they have like a starting point in present day. So both my stories today are actually like about the origins of certain flowers, and they have this like whole thing behind how they came together. So this one is about the hyacinth flower. There's also debate about like whether that's the flower or not, but there is a flower involved. So the story is about the god Apollo that everyone sort of knows a lot about. Apollo is like basically excellent at everything.
Yes.
He's one of the 12 Olympians, son of Zeus, god of healing, medicine, archery, music, poetry, and
Everything.
the sun.
And the sun.
So literally everything. Also a god of prophecy. So just everything. And so he at one point has a lover in the young strapping. Oh man. Oh, this is a hard name to say. I did practice this, believe it or not. Hyacinthus. Yeah, that's where the flower hyacinth comes from. Spoiler alert. But this young man, Hyacinthus, was like famously attractive, and there were plenty of gods and mortals who were in love with him. And so some of the gods were like the west wind and the north wind, and then there was this one like pretty famous human being too, but he's not like super important in this part of the story as far as I know. So there are different versions of the story, but this is the slightly more like dramatic one, so this is the one I'm gonna tell. Basically what happens one day is Hyacinthus chooses Apollo over all his other like suitors, and they sort of like go around Sparta, and Apollo like teaches him all these things, and you know Hyacinthus is big on sports because that's like what good Spartans do. So one day Apollo is teaching, or like I think they have like a friendly match of like discus throwing, and so Apollo throws the discus obviously like super hard because he's a god, and he sends it flying up to scatter the clouds, is how it's written. And then Hyacinthus runs after it, thinking to catch it to like impress Apollo, but instead the disc like hits him in the head. And so there are some versions where that just kind of like happens tragically, but the more dramatic version, which is more popular, is that Hyacinthus's death is a murderous crime of passion. And so the West Wind, Zephyrus, kind of pulls a "if I can't have you, no one can," and then like deliberately blows the disc into Hyacinthus's
Yeah, I was gonna ask how like the disc like was already like in the clouds and then came back to hit. Okay.
I mean, it like it would come back presumably to Earth, but like it is wild that it would hit him in the head. So I find this more believable that it's like Zephyrus who's behind it.
Some salty wind goddess.
Yeah. God. Wind god. Yeah. So then of course he like gets hit in the head, and then this is the sad part. There's like this is also the part of the story where there's a lot of like imagery and art, is like Apollo and like Apollo holding like Hyacinthus as he like dies in his arms. It's like very sad. There's a lot of really like beautiful like paintings and stuff.
I'm sure.
And statues. But Apollo, being the god of healing, tries to like heal Hyacinthus, and it doesn't work. And that's sort of like a big theme in Greek mythology, is the like fates. So once something has been decided, then it's not going to like you can't
change.
You can't kind of like undo your destiny. I mean that's where like Achilles also comes from, right? Like the ankle, and no matter what anybody did, Achilles was gonna like
well, fate is just like a common theme in like all kinds of mythology,
right.
Like, whether it's Greek or Roman, or even like the King Arthur mythology. Like it's all about like fate, blah 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 blah, things that are
Honestly, even Harry Potter.
Yeah, a little bit.
But
yeah.
like the whole prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's for another episode. um, so the flower part is like, tragically, Hyacinthus dies in Apollo's arms. Apollo, the god of healing, cannot do anything to change it. And I just
Sad.
realized as I was reading this, Apollo clinics are like this really, I don't know if they're a thing here, but like they're like a thing in other parts of the world. They're like a chain.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that, like, I
didn't know
never
that.
made the connection that, like, Apollo hospitals are named after Apollo, the god of healing. That makes complete sense, right? And I'm just
That
like,
makes a lot of sense, yeah.
it's everywhere. It is everywhere. Yeah, so it's really sad. And so what Apollo does to, like, honor his now dead lover is he, like, creates a flower out of the, like, blood, of Hyacinthus. So the soil that was, like, stained, quote unquote, by his blood becomes what is today known as the hyacinth flower. But there's also a lot of debate about, like, whether it's actually the hyacinth flower. Many people think it's not. That's like a common misconception, and it's actually the iris flower or the larkspur, because there's also part of the story where Apollo writes like AI, like the sound of grief, like I guess, or like sound of pain, like onto the flower's petals. Which obviously you don't see the letters like AI on any letter like flowers, but it's taken as like markings. Yeah, so like the iris flower is like purple, which is supposed to be the color of the hyacinth flower or whatever. But it has like yellow markings on it often. So people think like that's the AI. Some people are convinced they see the letters in there. It's like there's a whole group of like scholars trying to figure all of this out. So I think it's pretty interesting.
I want to be the person that like invented the story from seeing like a flower and like somehow deriving AI from the flower's markings, whatever flower that is. But yeah.
Yep.
So creative.
It is, right? That's what I always think. I'm like, it's so like the other story I have for today. There are so many like characters or like things that you can see how they exist today in terms of like words and like concepts. Then it's always like, did someone take that existing like terminology or like flower or whatever and then go backwards and like have really appropriate names for the characters? Or is it really like the stories, well, because Greek mythology is really old and like the language is really old, so it obviously makes more sense that the like English terms evolved from there. But it's sometimes it's like so fitting. It's kind of like, how is this possible? Like,
right? Yeah, it like all works together.
Yeah, it's very cool. I think it's so exciting. That's why I think it's that's why I hope that this episode is interesting to people, because it's always kind of like you make these connections to like your life. But anyway, that's my that's the Greek tragedy for today. So
kind of cool how there are so many like stories for flowers. Yeah, it's like people are just trying to make sense of the world,
That's true, right? Like you come up with a really convincing backstory. So yeah, there's this Hyacinthus story is like big. I remember I was telling you about the Minotaur, which we're not talking about today. But like Labyrinth comes from that Minotaur story too. And this where I'm reading the story off of, like, apparently the NTH suffix, like the letters NT and H, usually mean that like the name is really old and some sort of remnant of a pre-Greek language from before the development of ancient Greek culture as we know it. So it's like ancient like name. Is so like Labyrinth is also like probably directly out of the Minotaur story. And it's so funny because you use the word all the time and you don't know potentially that it's like thousands of
like
years
the
old.
etymology of it.
I think it's really interesting. So
well, speaking of etymology and like origins of words, my next short story is I never knew this until Chitika mentioned it to me, but I guess the one-liner of this is Athena punishes Arachne for being really good at weaving and then turns Arachne into a spider, which is where you get the Arachne part of the spider, whatever the official term
like
is.
Scientific.
The scientific. What is the scientific term for a spider?
Well, I know like fear of spiders is arachnophobia. So I guess arachno
I don't know, something like that. But yeah, so the story is like obviously a little more complicated than that. But Arachne was was she a nymph or she's just a person?
I think she's just a person, but she's like a really good.
Yeah, she was a really amazing like weaver, and like it was like a sight to behold. Like imagine amazing weaving, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, you're so good at everything, so good at weaving." And then she got like really big headed. Essentially, her ego like went way up, and she started bragging about her skills, saying that she's superior even to Athena, who is like, I don't think she's the goddess of weaving, but she's like amazing at weaving as well. She's like godlike in her weaving skills. So Athena, she being a big, a big goddess, basically was really upset and decided to challenge Arachne to like not a competition, but like just challenge her to see who can do better, who the better artist was. And Arachne did not hold back, and she like stood her ground. So they did this competition, and I think the interesting part of this story is like the content in which that they weaved. So Athena created a tapestry with scenes from the history of the Olympic gods, Olympic gods,
Olympians. Yeah.
Olympians, blah blah blah. She portrayed a Zeus at the center of the pantheon, and then like all this like victorious, beautiful, I guess like idealistic kind of artistic stuff. And Arachne, she deliberately chose scenes that depicted the infidelities of the gods. So she portrayed Zeus, and all of his like indiscretions and like how he had done all these like wild things, like turn into different animals to rape different gods. Yeah. I think this website cites like turned into a swamp, or not swamp, a swan to rape the Spartan queen Leda, a bull to entice Europa, an eagle to abduct Aegina, and then a bunch of other things to seduce so-and-so god or goddesses. And it was like a lot of scenes of all the misdemeanors of the gods, including like Poseidon or Apollo even. So yeah, she like basically disrespected the gods. And Athena was pissed. She destroyed Arachne's tapestry, and because like Arachne had dared to like question the legitimacy or like the quality of the gods, Athena turned her into a spider, proclaiming that Arachne and all her descendants would henceforth hang forever from threads and be skillful weavers. So that's how spiders came. Yeah. And spiders are skillful weavers, so...
This is true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, so also, the taxonomical class name for spiders is Arachnida.
Arachnida. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I should like looked it up.
So now it's like immortalized in science, if you want to think about it that way.
I doubt any biologist would be like, yeah, that's how spiders came about.
Totally. But isn't that cool? I feel like that's like, I don't know, that one I feel like was just like that would be something that like a kid would run around in a forest and see a spider and be like, oh, I wonder how that spider came to be. And then, thought of Athena.
Someone came up with a story.
Yeah, who would have been the greatest weaver and be like, I wonder, blah, blah, blah,
I know. Yeah. I wonder how like all of those stories like come to. Obviously, it's like you were saying, it's sort of people trying to make sense of the world. Mm-hmm. Gosh, Zeus is like my least favorite person.
Zeus is such a.
Zeus is the worst.
Yeah.
Are we filtering this for audiences or no? Okay.
I mean, I said Athena's a bitch, but she, yeah.
Yeah, we can just bleep.
Yeah.
Be like, Zeus is a bleep. Nobody will need to know what was behind it. What was I gonna say? Yeah, but that's actually, it's that's sort of the tough part, I think, of some of these stories, is because a lot of them have like less they have like really disturbing themes on some level. Mm-hmm. And a lot of time, like especially when you see the Disney versions, everything is like so pretty and clean and happy, and then when you read the books, there's a lot of like, I mean, the gods are actually supposed to be pretty like cruel.
Yeah, pretty ruthless.
Yeah, and it's very like on some level fascinating and some on other level like terrifying to like dig into some of these stories, because this conception of like a benevolent like force, you know, is so, I think that's what people usually expect. Again, especially if you watch like, I don't know, the Hercules like Disney movie.
Yeah.
Zeus is like hilarious and like so nice and everything. And it's kind of like, well, half these problems wouldn't be a thing if Zeus could just kind of like behave. But it's also like an accepted theme. I think that's the terrifying thing.
Yeah,
and that's probably one of the like less like fun and like more really concerning and like not acceptable remnants of these stories, because you can imagine if like this is the storytelling that's happening in a certain time, like it probably perpetuates, you know, certain roles, or it perpetuates certain behaviors as acceptable, so on and so forth. I wonder if that's probably harder to make connections about, but it's like I
see
feel like
that
has to be there. Yeah, because like the kinds of stories you tell people, you know, people will emulate them.
Yeah, and I think like some of the values also like are emulated from these like mythology stories. Like I don't remember if this is true or not, but I think a lot of early Christian beliefs were taken from Greek mythology too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so not a lot, but like I think some, I'm sure, transferred. So I think like the whole virgin story with Hera, and wanting to be like a maiden all the time, like that definitely transferred down. I think like the main idea about this Arachne story is like the offense towards the gods, which is like super serious and like sinful or whatever. So I guess that kind of transfers into a different religion. Yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, there's like Greek and Roman mythology. Greek and Roman mythology are basically like parallel. So there's like, you know, Zeus in Greek mythology is Jupiter in Roman mythology, so on and so forth. So there's a parallel for every god, and that's true in architecture too, right? Like we always think of like the Greeks and the Romans were the OG, and so yeah, I mean that's like if we start talking about like the whole like cradle of culture thing, a lot of like stories come from that part of the world. So it makes a lot of sense, like because Rome is the center of like the Catholic Church. So that has to be. I feel like if we Google this, like the internet would explode. In terms of, like,
there's so many
results.
holes you could go down.
So, yeah, there's definitely. I would venture, and I'm no historian, especially like in that respect, but
none of us are historians.
You're
the closest to a historian because you have a writing minor and a history minor.
Yeah, but it's like architectural history, so I can make. I think the thing is, you learn how to make plausible hypotheses. That's probably what I got out of it. So I always would tell like my professor in class, I was always like, what if this is like a thing? And she was like, I have no way to know, but I think you're onto something. And that was like the best. That was the best day. It was always like, oh, I have a good hunch. But I think you're very much. I think you're onto something.
Oh, thank you. It's like a gold star from the teacher.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay.
All right.
Real quick, do you want to talk about your last story? I guess that kind of also relates to like etymology too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This is a slightly less. This is an easier to digest story. So it's good to end on this one, I think. So this is a story about, everybody's heard the term like narcissist, narcissism, and few people know that there is actually a Greek myth behind the word. There is a man behind the word, and, you know, predictably a very self-absorbed person. So I'm just going to do everyone a favor and, like, actually read this off of, what is this website called? Oh, this is Britannica. So this is sort of reliable.
Our sources are not necessarily reliable.
I mean, like, these are stories, and
Yeah.
and I'm sure people. This is the kind of stuff actually, like, you can definitely go on to Reddit and like learn a lot. So,
True.
Narcissus was the son of a river god and a nymph. Nymphs are like characters in Greek mythology who are like these like beautiful, floaty, like forest creatures.
Floaty. I love the term floaty.
I just imagine them, yeah, like as very like ethereal and like yeah. But I
Yeah.
just know only Selena is like witnessing the little like dance
The
I'm doing
little
to
floaty dance.
the sway, yeah. But so of course, and they're supposed to be very beautiful. So typically, like offspring of nymphs, like with other gods or whatever, are also really attractive, and they're kind of like known for that. So Narcissus was the son of a river god and a nymph, and they have names, and I don't want to say them because I'm gonna sound really stupid. And so there was this like prophecy when he was a kid that said that he would lead a long life only as long as he did not know himself, which is like vague, but some people interpret it as like, oh, as long as he didn't know what he looked like how attractive he was, or as long as he didn't like do too much introspection. There's various interpretations.
Foreshadowing.
But, right. Basically, and the whole fates thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're sort of like an inevitable destiny at the end of all of this. So the bottom line is that he had to be humble, essentially. Of course, conveniently, he grew up to be amongst the most beautiful of all mortals. And he was even compared to Hyacinthus at one point. So everything is connected. Yeah. So one big thing is like Narcissus used to go deer hunting. So that's kind of like a background activity always in these stories. And related to the story of Narcissus is the story of Echo, which I'm just going to tell the two stories together because they flow better that way.
Yeah.
So Echo is, I think she is also a forest nymph. This doesn't say. Where are my notes? Anyway, but she has faced the wrath of Hera, our favorite vengeful partner of Zeus, which I don't blame her, honestly. But Zeus, like Echo was like kind of like covering up for Zeus, and of course he had instructed her to do so, so she kind of was like caught up in it all. But long story short, Hera curses Echo, and she was like known to be sort of this like eloquent and very chatty nymph. Like she was always like talking to people, and that's kind of how she would distract Hera. So like when Zeus was off being a terrible husband, Echo would like talk to Hera and like get her distracted in long conversations. So finally Hera like put two and two together. She was like, this is enough. And she curses Echo and says, you have no voice of your own, and you can only ever repeat like the last words someone says to you. And that's where the modern day like use of the term echo comes from.
Which is really cool.
And I think that's so cool. But Echo one day sees Narcissus deer hunting in the forest, and she immediately falls in love with him.
Because he's the most beautiful person in the world.
Yep, beautiful enough to be like Hyacinthus level beautiful. And Adonis, who I think is like, that's the normal point of comparison for like a really attractive person.
Yeah.
So Echo, because she doesn't have a voice, she can't like she's not able to call out to Narcissus. And so he hears her, but he goes like, who's there? And she's like, who's there? And then there's there's like a kind of funny exchange between them where she's just sort of like repeating what he says. And so eventually he says, come here, and then she says, come here again. And then Narcissus is like, well, if nobody's coming out of here, they're probably running away from me, and he like wants to know who's out there. So he says, this way we must come together. And then Echo takes this as like a sort of like invitation of love. And then she comes out like ecstatic, saying, we must come together. And Narcissus is just kind of like, excuse me. And so he is appalled. He spurns her. And this is according to Wikipedia. But he says, hands off. May I die before you enjoy my body.
So he's just like, he calls her to come out and then like yells at her?
Well, I guess he doesn't. He just wants to know who's there. So he's like calling the person to come out, but like not to like run up to him and hug him.
Okay, yeah.
So she's taking it as like an invitation from her lover, and he's just kind of like, can you step out of the shadows so I can see you? So slightly different. They're not on the same page. But yeah, so she obviously is like rejected by him, and then she is really sad. So she kind of like goes away into the forest, but she is still like she kind of like keeps an eye out for him because she's in love. And then at this time, apparently there's like a goddess or like nymph of revenge,
Of
whose
course there
name is Nemesis.
Ah,
I know. I've been
that's
holding that in
cool.
for like the longest time. I'm like, I'm
That's
not going to
cool.
say this. I know. I know. It's the coolest thing.
I
So
feel like the
Nemesis
world is
hears.
coming together.
It's. I swear. I know these are like weird stories, but there are parts that are just kind of like fantastic to me. So Nemesis goes like, oh, okay, and then she like leads Narcissus to a pond where he sees his own reflection for the first time. And the prophecy has now been fulfilled because he quote unquote knows himself. And so he like falls in love with the beautiful youth that is being reflected back to him in the waters. And of course it's him.
Yeah.
And so he's just kind of like, he despairs. He's absolutely like, he can't do anything. He can't eat or sleep or whatever. And he
Only
just
in love with himself.
yeah, he's like
That's so
firmly
weird.
like rooted to the pond side, and he just kind of like pines away after his own reflection, and he wastes away, and he dies like right there on the spot.
Wow.
And Echo is kind of like, because of her curse, is sort of like forced to watch him fall in love with himself and then waste away. And of course, like she's been rejected, but she's also like in love. So after he says, I think his last words are like, he says farewell to his own reflection. And so she echoes like farewell at the end of that. And then after he dies, she also like wastes away. So her beauty fades, her skin like breaks out. It's terrible. But then the only thing that's left of her is her voice, which is where
An
echo
echo.
comes from.
Yeah.
And then the spot where Narcissus dies, a flower emerges, which is a very common theme, at least in the two stories I chose. But that flower is called Narcissus.
Wow.
And so
And now we have narcissist, the word.
now we have narcissists, and yeah, we have the word and the people. So it's actually a pretty intense. I think sometimes people use the word a little like fleetingly,
Yeah.
but
But
like
there
a
is
narcissist is
serious stuff around that word.
yeah, and I think it's like you have to be really, really, just being self-absorbed doesn't make you a narcissist. Or maybe it does in like the modern day sense of the word, but ever since I learned that story, I feel like calling somebody a narcissist is like I would only call a few select people narcissists.
Yeah.
I think people can be self-absorbed. But,
I
like,
guess if you
the
call
whole-
someone a narcissist, all I can think about now is like, I wonder if they look at themselves in the mirror and just like love themselves in despair.
and just be like, oh, like, how come no one like you exists? There is like a sadder version of why he was staring into the waters, which is that.
No, I thought the revenge person just like made him do it.
Yeah. I think that's one version, which again I like better. Again, I don't know, the vengeful thing is, I guess that's a theme that speaks to both of us. But there's a version where he has a twin sister who dies, and so she was his like spitting image, and he like gazes into the spring to like recall her features. So that's why he's like sad and wasting away by the
That's not as
edge
fun.
of the water. I know.
But then, like, wouldn't he just fall in love with his sister?
Which is a theme in Greek mythology.
That is
but
true.
I think it's supposed to be more like mourning.
Yeah.
Because he's like sitting there to remember what she looked like, so he looks at her himself, So I think that's less like self-absorption, but I don't know which one is more accepted. I know the Nemesis one is more popular.
It's more fun.
For sure. Yeah. But there's a really funny painting of Echo and Narcissus, and it's him like, I'll send you this. He's like sprawled next to the lake and just like staring at a reflection. He doesn't even know she's like there. And she's just like sitting on the corner, like sadly, longingly looking at him. So Yeah, Greek mythology is weird. I'm gonna send this to you now.
Oh, hold on, I'm looking at it. Oh yeah.
So
Wow.
I know.
Wow. Well, he does look like he's in despair.
I was gonna say he does look like he would be good looking, even though you can't really see his face.
Yeah. He looks like he has like that nose, like that nice, ideal nose.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So sad.
I know. Oh, you can see his reflection. Like, you can
Mm-hmm.
see his face, like, painted in there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyway, that's all I have in terms of stories.
I love it.
I hope this wasn't. I hope this was more enjoyable than disturbing. So
I enjoyed
maybe
it.
we'll see. Oh
If
yeah,
anything,
I think
we had fun.
that is true. That's true. I think it's always there's a lot of these stories. I mean, we can go into a whole thing about like, oh yeah, like everything is so Eurocentric and these are the stories that we all know and like are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But what about, but we will maybe we'll do something to help that in the rest of these episodes by picking stories from places that people don't hear as much about.
Yeah,
So,
we'll do some like other regional stories that
for
are
sure.
more Asian centric or whatever. Yeah, it's
Less Europe.
less Eurocentric. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, I
Yeah.
mean, I think the Eurocentric ones are interesting because a lot of them help uh, contribute to the creation of the English language, especially like this Greek mythology one. I
That's
think is
true.
interesting. So yeah,
Yep.
cool
But
stuff.
that's Greece for
That's Greece,
today.
and that's your history lesson.
I know. Exciting. This could be a fun. I hope this is a fun series.
Yeah. If anything, it's fun for us. So that's all that matters.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening. Once again, rate us 5 stars, or rate us in whatever capacity you can. I know some people like only listen on Anchor or like only listen on Spotify. I think on Spotify you can subscribe. So make sure you subscribe, and on iTunes too, I think. But make sure you subscribe for future videos. We're probably gonna do another like one or two of these storytime ones before we delve into a more serious topic.
Yeah.
So yeah, exciting.
Yay. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And as always, this is Working Knowledge. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.